Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to Motion Capture on a Budget. Excuse me. I'm John DL.
My name's James Banfield, and hopefully we'll be not bringing you feedback loop. We might need to turn the audio and mic off, John. So we've got a really cool presentation, or we think it's cool anyway, that we're going to take you through. And the goal of this is to talk about all the things you can do with mocap on a budget, and the main kind of purpose of this is, like, there are many options available to you if you're trying to get a mocap shoot, a bespoke mocap shoot on a very tight budget. And when we say on a tight budget, you know, all budgets are kind of relative. So when we're talking about a tight budget, we're talking about $36. So yeah, how do you do a mocap production on $36, including the performer?
And this is end-to-end, James. Yeah, this is from start to finish.
This is start to finish. So if you're taking the file and then you're being creative with that file and editing with that file, then our goal is to kind of take you through not just our solution, but also take you through some of the other solutions that are on the market as well, and talk about pros and cons, and then we'll give you a little bit of a glimpse into where the future direction of where we think things are heading. So yeah, anything you want to add to that, John, before we kick in?
No, I would. The only thing I'd like to add is just let us know where you are from today, what part of the world. We normally have a worldwide audience. It'd be great to introduce yourself, and if you do have questions, please put them in the chat.
Yeah. If you do have any questions coming along, we will do our best to keep monitoring the chat as it's going, and answer them as they kind of as they appear. So from our perspective, you know, we see that there is a huge opportunity for the 3D market, specifically mocap, but all forms of 3D. You know, it's quite clear to see that there's huge developments going on. It's almost like a day doesn't break without a new story about some new 3D component, whether it's VR, AR, whether it's a new AI solution that's solving things. And the thing that we think is really interesting is that if this future that I think, you know, a lot of people are kind of believe will exist, if this future happens, then there's going to need to be more 3D content than we've ever had before. And you know, we've had this with stills, we had this with photography. Back in the early days, in the 80s, you know, you had to be a bit of a chemist to do photography, whereas today, you know, a 1 second thumb press and you've got 120 images taken on your phone, of which you probably won't even use one. So we've gone from one extreme to the other. But where we are at the moment in this kind of paradigm shift is that 3D, especially mocap, is a bit challenging. So hopefully, if you're looking to get 3D mocap, you'll hopefully be able to get a lot out of this webinar today, as we kind of talk you through some of the options that are available and just give some really basic tips on what to do. So yeah, our solution, Performant Live solution, is pretty simple. So our solution is this concept of, well, if you're going to do if you need mocap and you're going to do a capture, why not do it all within an app? Why not create a mini production within an app? So you book the performer, you direct the performer, and then you download their performance. And this is the reason, in case you're wondering, why John is stood in the background in his living room with a suit on. So John, do you want to quickly take the team through what you've got on you, and we'll jump into the first demo?
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, we are mobile first. So we're no PC. We have our performers wear our motion capture system, which is an 18 sensor system split between top and body, and it's embedded within a base layer garment. So it's very easy to put on. It's very comfortable. And then on my left pocket, I have a pod, and that pod effectively collects all the sensor data. It has the comms in it that allows us to communicate with the mobile device, which you'll see there, and also enables us to connect to the cloud. And that gives us the ability to be able to capture anytime, anywhere. With no PCs, we're not restricted by boundaries. We capture at 1,000 frames per second, so it's super fast. And what you'll see, and we stream typically around 24 frames per second as well. So that kind of gives you a high level perspective of the system. And ultimately that will draw a nice 3D avatar of me moving that you'll see shortly. And then we're able to perform various activities. And please bear in mind, I am not a skilled performer. So one of the things that we do add into the equation is when you see talent and you see them move, they are very, very good. I am not in that ballpark at all, but it'd be indicative of capability of the system and how we can easily capture mocap and then turn that into an animation.
Yeah, so look, we'll do our first demo. We've got another one to showcase as well, but if I just jump onto this one. So John, if you wouldn't mind doing a Usain Bolt for me in a minute. We just got a couple of recordings of a Usain Bolt.
No worries, I'll just do a quick calibration.
And I just need you to, yeah, fantastic, turn your recording off at some point as well. Your microphone, sorry. So what you can see here is that we've basically got John in an app, and this is our mobile app. I'm playing it on a Mac. The hertz rate at the moment is running a little bit slow, but you can see that John's moving around, and we'll show you something with a faster hertz rate in a little bit. But what we're able to do is we can spin around in the app. So this would be basically my thumb in the app, and we've got a live connection. So if you notice, it says rehearsal at the top. When it says recording, it's John's recording. And during recording mode, the suit is basically prioritizing John's motion over streaming. And in that mode, we always see frames drop because it's always trying to prioritize its processing power for the actual streaming component. So if I go into some of the captures here, we've already got one capture that's in there. If I click on that one, I can play that back, and that's got John doing his Usain Bolt. I can scrub it, I can pause it, go backwards and forwards, and what I can also do is I can transmit that. So the first recordings come in. I've got the Unreal Engine 5 option there. If I just export that, that will grab that file from the cloud, and we've already done our first capture. So this is actually how our system works. You connect with a performer, you talk to the performer, and as you're talking with the performer, you can then transmit it wherever you would like. So if I airdrop that to my MacBook Pro, and then I'll drop that into a platform, and I can then send that across from the platform to any of my colleagues. So there we go. If I come out of that and come back to this screen here, there's John sat down back at his computer desk. Thank you very much, John. Right, and we'll move on. So so that's basically how our platform works. It's fundamentally, you book a performer, you connect with them, you have an audio connection, you can see their avatar, they do a recording, you capture that recording, and then you transmit that recording for a later date. But what if you're looking to do something on your own? So maybe you want to be the performer. Well, if we're setting ourselves a budget of $36, then there isn't much you can really do on your own in terms of like a suit. So the only options you have are actually the new AI systems that are kind of coming out. And I say new because the reality is it's not. I'm showing on the screen here is actually from 2019. And this may be a bit jumpy, but it's pretty fluid from where I am. This was a company called Wrench. And the footage here is actually from a mobile phone. So running their app on a mobile phone. And it was pose estimation. So most companies or most references were like pose estimation, and still is to a certain extent. But you know, as soon as AI suddenly become exciting and hot, everyone called themselves an AI company, which they are. But the main point here is this was using machine learning and neural networks to get the pose estimation. This created a 3D model but it wasn't very good at putting the model in 3D space because it had limited information. So tracking the 3D space is very hard. In fact, I saw there was an amazing paper this morning on doing this anyway. But the main point here is back in 2019, which is like a Stone Age step backwards in time for AI, it was already possible to do this on a mobile phone and in real time. But today, what have we got? We've pretty much got quite a few options available in terms of mocap services. Pretty much all of them work on the premise of sending it to the cloud. The reason that they send it to the cloud is because the algorithms that they run effectively require the cloud processing in the background. So without the cloud processing, they desperately need the algorithms there, the crunch and the capability to process in the cloud and kind of run those files and do the processing on them. And it's single person. But these solutions from Move, Radical, Rococo, Deep Motion, they all have the capability of uploading a file to the cloud, processing it, and then downloading a file. And that process can take anywhere from 1 or 2 hours. Some of them a little bit quicker depending on what service you're on. And cost-wise, I think most of them here have a free option. But they're not all free. Some of them have got like a hidden cost, or they might have a monthly cost that you can subscribe to. So there's various different things. The video clip in the middle here is Radical. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add on that John. I'm just going to quickly send your file over to one of the team to have a quick look at now that I've downloaded it.
I think the point I would pick up on is that you mentioned about sort of the processing that goes on with those solutions. And if I sort of reference back to how we process, so we process immediately on the pod that the skill performer wears. And the opportunity for that is that it takes, less than 30 seconds to effectively process the movement. You're able to then re-watch it to check that actually the capture that you've got is on point. I know from harsh experience many a time with other systems that I've used that, you think you've got the best take and then you review the data and you're a little bit disappointed that, you've either missed, you've missed something in the movement or something's happened during the capture that you haven't accounted for. And, that ends up causing you issues of filling in gaps or finding a way around the capture that you've got. So, when you're looking at, a fast way to capture your data, review it quickly with minimal, processing time. We fit a really nice gap there, for you to be able to actually see, and then ultimately to be able to export that very quickly, then to start animating. So it's a super slick, fast process.
And it's important to note as well that one of the reasons why these big studios are so expensive is not just because of the hardware that they have or the physical space that they take up, but also the expertise they have on site. So the technical expertise at some of the studios, especially the big games engine studios, is phenomenal. And for that reason, the talent doesn't need to worry about any of the setup or the technical challenges. And that's also the reason why we've taken the focus of an app, so that the customer never has to consider about how the capture process works. We've made it super simple for the performer. But when we're talking about AI specifically, what you can see here is that you can send a video, you can transmit that video, and then it's turning that video into a 3D character effectively, and that's what you're seeing at the end of it. If we go a little bit further into it, though, there are a few kind of do's and don'ts, and specifically this relates to AI. So I used the word previously, or the term previously, pose estimation. And that is what AI is doing in 3D. It's basically estimating what it thinks is the pose of the subject at that point in time. And it's stitching that together to create an animation. Now, it's an estimation because, as we've said in the previous webinar, there is no thing is absolutely 100% perfect mocap data or mocap capture. Every system, every process has its own flaws, and some of those flaws show themselves in different ways. But with AI, one of its challenges is that it's having to guess a lot of the time where certain things are. So when you get an AI file back and it looks really great, sometimes that's not a perfect example of what's actually happened in the real world. And some of the AI services, what they actually do is they'll offer services where you can have multiple cameras around the subject. And that the reason for the multiple cameras is to remove that amount of error, to try and give the AI more information around the subject. Now, the reason we haven't included those, the multiple cameras, is because there's no way you can have a multi-camera setup for $36. It doesn't work. But a single camera, if you've obviously got a phone already, then that is possible if you're willing to do the performance on yourself. So if you're willing to be the performer, you can do a mocap production for $36, but you'd need to use AI in order to do that. And if you're doing that, a couple of really key important things to remember is, because it's doing pose estimation, it's important to keep your feet and hands and your entire body inside the frame, because it's estimating the position of your body as it is. But if you start losing your position of your hands and they start going outside of the frame, it will make quite significant estimations as to what that will look like. And that is one of the key things to always kind of keep in mind in terms of when you're using this type of technology, is that its limitation is that it has to be a good shot of the subject. And anything where you get any breakdown of that shot will have a negative impact in terms of how that looks in the final result. So just always keep that in mind. Right, so my colleagues have actually sent through a file, but before I jump onto that file, we'll just talk a little bit more about other things to avoid. So AI, the other aspect you've got to be careful of with AI is just acknowledging that it's getting all of the information from the video file you're sending it. So whether that video file is being streamed or whether that video file is being sent as a complete package. So just keep in mind that any fast action will actually blur the scene, and therefore the AI is making a guess. Also, if you're trying to keep the budget low, it's going to be a single camera. So obviously hiding behind things will have a negative impact as to how things look. And also where you have lots of people, the AIs, nearly all of the AIs on single camera will struggle to do a good job with lots of people close together, because it's a very taxing process. Some of them can do multi people separated. Some of them can do multi people with a mixed camera environment. So you have lots of cameras and they're picking it up. Most of the time they keep the people quite distanced. You'll notice in all of the examples, really, most of the time the people showing the distance. The reason for that is they clearly don't want to have it too close. And the reason that they don't want to have it too close is because it will fail, and it will often kind of create a bigger problem. So that's the reason why you often see these kind of like people walking around in a circle or something like that. And then the last thing to consider as well when you're using these AI apps is some of them have already got them capped. You will have a limit to how long you can upload. So depending on how much you're willing to pay, because that's normally the business model with the AI services. We actually have no limit to how long the mocap is. You could shoot 20 minutes, 15 minutes. You could shoot 45 minutes of mocap. We've done some tests where we've done 2 hours. It is the most boring mocap, and I think anyone that received 2 hours of mocap data would actually hate us for it. But if you needed to do it, we can actually do it. But when you're dealing with AI,
I feel sorry for the I was going to say I feel sorry for the animator having to work on that segment as a project.
Yeah, well, 100%. I think if in that scenario, it's not fun. Definitely not fun.
I think just to point out, James, I mean that was a testing scenario because we were testing various algorithms to see stability in our sensor data over time. I don't think it's a typical use case. I certainly haven't come across one for that duration. But to add to James's point, we have that flexibility to do long durations. We're not impeded by time or processing. And you're just about to see my superb movements amalgamated into 4 characters actually there.
Yeah, so this is just while we've been on the call, and if you're wondering why am I looking over to my left-hand side, one is I'm just checking on some of the comments, but most importantly, our colleagues have just very kindly did a little quick animation. This is just using iClone. There's been no cleanup done on it, and it's just been transferred straight across. But what you can basically see is the speed at which we did that at the beginning of the talk. We exported that. That's been then sent to a colleague. The colleagues then dropped that into an animation file and then sent that back. And I've actually been sat on that for 2 minutes because I couldn't find my download option on my Slack channel. But you can kind of get a sense of how quickly we can actually move and operate in terms of what's possible. And we've actually had customers that have been using the beta testing for us, and they've been transferring the files and had the animations completed within an hour from capturing. So that's one of the great things. And the reason that this is possible in the first place is because we're processing the file locally. So the suit processes the file before it transmits it. And so there's very little that the cloud needs to do as opposed to where we're processing in the cloud, which gets a bit more complicated. So now that that's done, like just going back onto the long clips, one of the challenges with long clips is not only do you get capped on the AI systems, but the other problem you'll have with the long clips is just how long they take to upload, and therefore how long they'll be to download as well. So depending on what your network connection is. Now, this may sound like we're beating up AI. Not at all. The reality is AI in certain locations is fantastic. And we're just highlighting that if you're doing it for yourself and using a single camera AI solution, avoid these steps to get the best results, because no mocap system is perfect. And if you're trying to do it on a budget, it's going to be, either you take the performant live route with the performer, or you take it the AI route where you do the performance yourself. They're the two options that we can think of at the moment where you can get bespoke mocap for under $36. So that's the reason why we're kind of like really digging into it, is just to help people get the very best out of what they want to achieve.
I mean, just to add to that, James, as well. I mean, that's for us. That would be, you'd have a 20-minute capture for $36, and typically you would get a 20-minute connection. I beg your pardon, and you would get up to probably 10 minutes worth of mocap data, depending on your use case. And ultimately, that's the same if you're using single camera solutions as well. What is your use case? What do you want to capture? How do you want to capture it? Where do you want to capture it? Because potentially you might have lighting issues as well with single cameras, depending upon your environment, that can add a little bit more noise into your capture. But those are fundamentally some of the things that you want to sort of de-risk as much as possible, so you get the best possible capture. And then ultimately, are you talented enough to transition from a dancer to a martial artist to a weapons expert to an actor? I'm certainly not, based on that skill set you've shown. But that's a fundamental difference if you want mocap, almost fast mocap for a 20-minute booking to deliver some form of content out into the marketplace with a high level skill performer and a quick turnaround.
And that actually kind of like takes us to the next step. We're talking about performers. So there's an ethical question. Just when you're working on a budget, it is always difficult to get the best you want. And with some of these services, you can upload video files, which begs the question of like, well, what if you take the videos from YouTube and other bits and pieces? I'm not sure on the sites, what their T's and C's are, but the ethical question is that actually that's not great for the performers, because they're missing out in that scenario. And especially in the creative industry, we're all in this together, right? You wouldn't feel that great if someone was cutting you out of commission because they're using your skills, but you're not getting paid for that. We feel strongly that for performers that they need to be paid for the work that they do, and paid fairly as well. So we would always encourage, if you're working with someone talented, is that they at least get credit for everything that they've done, and that you work with them wholeheartedly, that it's a collaboration, rather than just taking their work from a YouTube channel or something like that. So it is important that in this industry that we respect each other's skill sets, but we also respect copyright as part of that. And that's one of the reasons why we built up a team of talented performers, because we felt strongly about that, and we realized that if we could get their skills and capture their skills digitally and transfer those skills digitally in real time, that there's a market that would actually benefit from that. Because most of the time you can't afford to book a performer for an entire day, which is normally what these guys are doing, but a micro shoot is achievable.
I mean, James, let's not forget as well the part of the the strike action that has been going on for a number of months that has caused the industry a lot of pain. A lot of the new guidelines that have come in actually now protect motion capture performers.
Yes.
So it's whilst it was the fight between studios and big production houses, and then the conduit in between of the mocap performers, at least for the first time, and it's not new in terms of operationally of how they would work, at least they've got a degree of protection now going into the industry, to make sure that they're not replicated, to make sure that they get the appropriate pay, the appropriate insurance, the appropriate backup. And that's now recognized by the studios and the bigger studios as well. So, that's, a win for the mocap performer, whereas before, they were very much seen as a sort of a byproduct of a production. And based on, looking at the videos that you're seeing there, these are extremely talented individuals, and their skill and talent is worthy of proper protection.
Yes, 100%, 100%. So let me go to what's possible we've gone through today, what's possible today, and from our side, but also from an AI perspective, it is definitely possible to get mocap from single camera now and do the cleanup on it to get some pretty good results. But you just gotta make sure you avoid fast action, hiding behind props, multiple performers, and long camera takes. What do we see as the next generation? Well, next generation system for us is that there's no PCs involved. There's an ultra fast connection. So no PCs involved in capture. That's not to say PCs won't be involved, obviously, in the animation bit once the file's received. But you have hand and face data, body data, and all of that can be transmitted via a mobile phone anywhere on the planet to another phone, a VR headset, or a computer directly. And this is exactly what we're working on at the moment. We've done tests recently on this next generation tech that we're building, and we've been able to go from China to the UK. So that's 6,100 miles through the firewall of China. And if you've ever been in China, the firewall is pretty damn aggressive. It pretty much blocks most of the Western content in the world. So, no Google, very, very limited services, no WhatsApp, phone calls have big delays on them, etc. We found that Perform It Live's direct connection worked absolutely fine, which was great. So we did a test of that just over a month ago, I think now.
I mean, bear in mind, James, when we did that test, you were in a taxi.
Yeah, I was in a taxi in China.
In China, I was in the UK, and I think our curiosity got the better of us because we just wanted to see whether or not what's our mobile capability like. So James is purely mobile in a fast-moving car, but also to test could we, was there an issue with connection and data transfer to China? And to our surprise, there was none.
Yeah, it was seamless. In fact, the audio connection was the best audio connection I'd had all week in terms of latency. It was fantastic. So yeah, it just goes to show that the pipeline, we've tested it thoroughly and physically as well. So on that note, let me show you something that we're working on. This is something you will see in beginning 2024. And if I jump over to Pete, would you like to say hello to everyone?
Just turn the microphone on first. Hello, everyone.
So this is Pete, one of our team from R&D, and he is showing off our latest solution, which includes the face and hands. You'll see that the streaming rate is much higher, so we're getting very smooth rates. Now, it may be that the solution we're using for streaming might just drop some of the frames, but my side on my computer, it's very smooth indeed. We're getting face animation and hand animation now is being streamed real time. And what this basically means is that we can now record and transmit in the same process that you've seen earlier in the webinar, face and hands. And that process will be coming online in the early part of 2024. So currently the performers, we get their body, but moving into 2024, we will have their body, hands, and facial animation. And that means that we'll be able to capture various different components. If I zoom in a little bit more on Pete's face, let me just, and I can zoom around here. Pete can't actually see where I'm looking, so if you could give us a little finger walk, Pete, just show off your finger digits. There we go. The amazement, yes. give us a wink, Pete, and give us your shooting fingers. There we are. So you can hopefully see the potential of where this is going. The other thing we're able to do is, because we're streaming, is this will be able to be streamed into other devices as well. So going back to what we were showing you, our roadmap, this is what the team are working very hard on, is to get the next generation of data, not only to be super efficient in terms of latency, but also being super efficient in terms of transmission and the ability to share that information very quickly. And we've been doing tests very recently where we've been really impressed with what we've been able to achieve in terms of the connection and the quality of the data that's now coming out. Is surpassing our expectations. Not saying that it's going to overtake what you're going to get from a AAA, but with the feedback we've already had from some of those type of customers is that the quality is pretty damn good. So we're very excited about where that's going. Yeah, Pete, it's done very well. Right, if you give everyone a thumbs up, Pete, and then I can disconnect you. Right, thank you, Pete. So it's a bit of a short live performance today, but if anyone's got any questions that they want to raise, then do so at the moment. I mean, we've been showcasing effectively our pipeline, also given some hints and tips on if you're going to use an AI solution. So if you're trying to do mocap at less than $36, then great. But if this is the best way to do it, we think, is to take our pipeline and get access to a performer. Alternatively, if you're going to do your own, have a look at the various AI solutions that are on the market, and see what the best one for you is. And just remember, keep yourself in the frame. Don't hide behind props, nothing too fast, etc., etc. And if you do those tips, you should be able to get some workable files out at the end of that. It is Christmas after all, so we have got a Christmas ho 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 offer, and that will get you a free 20-minute connection if you want to have a play with the system. You got anything to add there, John?
My only addition, James, would be take advantage of the free 20-minute connection. There's nothing like the experience of working with a professional skilled performer. And you would have access to some top tier talent that you can send your storyboard to and your idea. You can rehearse with them live, and you can create your bespoke mocap, and you'll be able to do that in 20 minutes and get your file back as well. So if you're working on reels,
always next.
or you're doing any pre-viz, or you're doing any sort of, you want to do any pre-production testing to get a look and feel of your concept, it's a great opportunity for you to take advantage of that if you want to.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, please do. I'm just looking at the comments at the moment. There's nothing that's jumped down to mind. But if you do have anything, just drop us a note and we will get back to it. It may be because my PC is just frozen here to the side here, so I can't see.
Yeah,
exactly
there is a slight lag between the stream and what questions we get through. But if you do have any questions, please either reach out to James and I directly. Be happy to answer any questions you have, or if you'd like a further conversation, ultimately, drop us a line on LinkedIn.
Yeah, excellent. With that, we hope you have an amazing Christmas and a happy New Year. And We'll see you in the new year with our phase 2 pipeline at the ready.
Fantastic. Have a great holiday.